Hi, my name is May Boburn and I'm a Board Certified Behavior Analyst with DiNovi Associates. In this video, I'll be talking about the use of chaining, which is area G8 in the 5th edition BACB task list. Task analysis is a process in which a task is analyzed into component parts so that those parts can be taught through the use of chaining. There are 3 types of chaining. There's total task presentation, forward chaining, and backward chaining. The distributive stimulus is the cue that is present to alert the organism that reinforcement is available. In chaining, the prior step serves as the SD for the next step. Each response served as a conditioned reinforcer for the response that produced it. Each response serves as a distributive stimulus for the next response of the chain, with the exception of the first and last responses in the chain. When brushing your teeth, the SD for putting toothpaste on the brush is removing the cap from the toothpaste. When preparing a bowl of cereal, pouring the cereal into the bowl is the SD for accessing the milk from the refrigerator. When driving to a familiar location, various environmental stimuli, such as tall trees, a park, a hospital, the school, can all serve as the SDs as well.
A certain street sign will evoke turning behavior,
for example. To develop a task analysis, ask an expert in the field, watch a peer complete the same task and observe the components completed, and you could also use a published, reliable resource. For total task presentation, break tasks down into smaller teachable steps. Each subset is taught and reinforced in the sequence it is performed. The learner completes each step of the chain, each time the skill is presented until all steps are completed independently. An advantage is that the entire task is presented at once, which may lead to a quicker rate of acquisition. A disadvantage is that it may not be appropriate if the learner lacks prerequisite skills or cannot complete many components of the chain. An example of this would be like washing hands.
When teaching hand washing during a total task presentation, all components of the chain are introduced in the order that they will occur each time the task is presented. Again, each response serves as a discriminative stimulus for the next response of the chain. For example, the SD for pumping soap into your hands will be to rub your hands together, and the SD for rubbing your hands together will be to rinse the soap off of your hands.
In forward chaining, you're teaching the first step or subtask that the student has not completed acquisition and prompting the student for the remainder of the task. Reinforcement is delivered immediately following the first step or subset completed. Once the student meets criteria with the first step or subtask, then the focus of instruction will be on the next step that the learner has not met acquisition on. Reinforcement will then be delivered for the completion of the next step or task. This will continue until all steps of the chain have met criteria. An advantage is that acquisition begins with the initial step of the chain. A disadvantage is that with reinforcement being provided during all of the initial steps of the chain, the learner may lack the motivation to complete any steps after reinforcement has been provided. An example of this would be with handwriting.
When teaching handwriting in a forward chain, initially only the first letter in the name is reinforced. When the student has met acquisition and is expected to write the first 2 letters of his name, he may lack the motivation to write the second letter because he had not yet contacted reinforcement.
Backward chains teach the last step or subset of the task the student has not mastered. When teaching backward chaining, you would teach the last step or subtask that a student has not yet met acquisition would be focused on first. This provides the student with immediate reinforcement through successive completion of the task. Once the skill has met criteria, the focus of instruction moves to the next to last step of the sequence. Reinforcement is then delivered upon completion of the last 2 steps or subsets. This will continue until all the steps of the chain have met criteria. An advantage is that reinforcement is provided at the end of the chain. A disadvantage is that there may be no or limited opportunities to perform other subsets or steps in the chain. An example would be like getting a snack.
When teaching getting a snack in a backward chain, the motivation to complete the chain is to access the snack. But since the prior steps of the chain, like accessing a lunchbox or going into a pantry, may not be performed as frequently, this may potentially decrease the rate of acquisition.
Although there is a lot of research to support the use of chaining for skill acquisition, there's also research to support the use of chaining as part of a treatment package to address problem behaviors as well. In the Lally et al. Article, chaining was utilized in conjunction with functional communication training and extinction to decrease escape-maintain behaviors. After a functionally equivalent verbal response was taught to replace the problem behavior, which was requesting for a break, Response chaining was introduced systematically to increase the number of tasks completed before the participant was provided access to reinforcement or a break. To help disseminate the science, please share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.